LinkedIn Live. We have today a pretty impressive guest. I know from my research, I know you will agree with me after we complete our conversation if you don't already know him. It's Mikita Mikado, who is the founder, one of the founders, and the CEO of PandaDoc, which is, for those of you who aren't familiar, an all-in-one document workflow automation platform. Basically, your ability to create, manage, sign digital docs. Very interesting story. So welcome, and so glad you made time today, Mikita. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure, Karen. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So let's start it just to hear a little bit about PandaDoc. So I know that it started as a different organization, you and your co-founder, and then you pivoted or just transformed into PandaDoc. So what inspired you to create this product? And tell us a little bit of the history.
My co-founder and I have been working together for over 15 years now.
Wow.
And we tried and failed and occasionally succeeded with a number of business endeavors. PandaDoc was launched 9 years ago. We like to say that we take document workflows beyond electronic signing, beyond signatures. So think of any kind of transactional document, be that a contract, which is the most popular one, or a sales proposal, or a quote, or a purchase order, or a form of any type. We help to generate those documents, collaborate on them, store them, ensure nothing gets lost, sign them electronically, notarize if need be, and then store back to your systems of record, be that CRM or ERP or you name it. So we're that connecting tissue that helps to get deals done, employees hired, data collected, you name it.
Yeah. Well, certainly a huge need for that in our lives. How did you two land on this as something you wanted to spend your time on and build?
Yeah, one thing turned into another. We ran a small software development firm, an agency, and we had to create a lot of sales proposals. And we found that process to be extremely inefficient. And we built a product for agency owners to save time on building quotes, proposals. And that product gained some traction. We made a lot of mistakes, learned a few things, and found that there is a much bigger opportunity in the marketplace. And that opportunity is in transactional document automation, not just in quotes for agencies. One thing after another, we decided to raise money and export myself to Silicon Valley, and then we launched PandaDoc.
Wow, what a journey to start with something, make mistakes, get feedback from the market that allowed you then to create a product that is so super successful today. I know you recently integrated with QuickBooks as well as acquiring Live Notary. Just FYI, I spoke with Gadzari last week, which was a lot of fun as well. But what's your vision for PandaDocs in the future? How does this integration as well as the acquisition and whatever else might be on the plate fit into that?
Sure. As I said before, we take document workflows beyond electronic signatures, which means a lot of things.
It means, by the way, you're not named DocuSign or something sign, right? You're named Doc, right?
Yeah. And documents are central within our product. And that's how we are also very different from the rest of, let's say, e-signature players. Documents within PandaDoc are interactive. you can say they're alive. You can edit them, you can collaborate on them, you can embed functionality into documents. And we did all of that. We enabled all of that in order to have better automation baked in order to integrate better with the systems of record, like QuickBooks Online, or in order to embed functionality like electronic notarization, so that this functionality fits in natively. Yeah, so documents within PandaDoc are built with the HTML. They're kind of web-born, web-based, and that's why doc is in the name, I guess. Now, in terms of what we do with Intuit and QuickBooks, a lot of document workflows start or end in finance, start or end in accounting systems, which is where our integration fits in really well with QuickBooks Online. Now, on electronic notary, that's one of the extensions of document workflows that we automate and streamline. Sometimes when you send out a contract, you got to get notarized. Sometimes when you send out a sales proposal, again, you got to get notarized. Electronic notary is legally binding in almost all of US states. There are just 2 states that are left behind. But otherwise, it's perfectly legal. You don't have to drive to a notary in order to.
That's so wonderful to know. I mean, Frank, it's one of the most frustrating parts of signatures, of whether they're live or not, is having to find a notary and show up and actually get the notarization done.
Exactly.
Super smart.
It's so much easier. So much easier. E-signatures, I think in 2022, it is a given, but then for contracts that got to get notarized or forms that got to get notarized, for most Americans, that option is available on the comfort of your office or CAP.
And as you say, all of this often ends up back in finance or accounting system. I'm just thinking, without that, there are many salespeople on the planet who would not bother getting all of the T's crossed and I's dotted. So an important thing to have. So you've been around for 9 years. If my research is right, you've had about $51 million in outside funding. Last one being a Series C last fall, which seems like remarkably little. So maybe super judicious on your part, taking in outside funds. What's your philosophy been on that?
We raised a little more, but you're in the ballpark. You're in the ballpark. We've tried to we'll help our customers to gain efficiency. Therefore, we try to be as efficient as we can be ourselves. It was, I gotta admit, it was scary to raise money for a software product in the cloud. And for me. And coming into America, I didn't really know how the venture world works. So we approached it, little by little, and try to rely on our own resources more than outside funding. But yeah, we didn't raise a ton of cash, and we didn't spend a ton of cash. So I guess it's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm imagining that what was scary was the sort of giving up control or someone else having a vote, all the stories of vulture capital, as opposed to sort of partnerships with your investors.
Not that quite.
No?
I was born in Eastern Europe.
Yes.
So what was scary is repercussions and personal liability
Ah,
if things don't go well,
yeah.
which
Yeah.
is, you know, it's not the case. Like companies, I invest a lot myself, and when things don't work out, well, what can you do?
Right.
But again, being born where I was born didn't really, that was not established in my head. Let's put it
Yeah,
that way.
sure. Absolutely. And I want to come back to that in just a few minutes because that's a super interesting story as well. So where do you see PandaDoc going, the industry going in general, if you have thoughts on that?
Where's PandaDoc going, I think, is an easier answer, so I'll start there. As I mentioned, we streamline document workflows, take
Right.
document workflows beyond a signature. And as of today, we are a market leader in contract management, in proposal automation, in quoting for small, mid-sized businesses. And those are some of the workflows. Like those markets actually correlate with the workflows that our product streamlines.
Mhm.
But there are many more document workflows that originate in, let's say, HR or
Mm.
operations or supply chain management, real estate, and so on and so forth. So in the near term, what we're planning to do is to continue to add markets through adding new document workflows, through serving new industry, and then we're going to continue expand that way.
Yeah.
Longer term, I'm seeing us expanding beyond document workflows and finding broader workflows, be that approvals or contract life cycle management and so on and so forth, that where we can be helpful, where our product can be helpful. It's a massive market. It's a huge market.
Mm.
So I think we're going to be busy for the next few years. We're going to be busy helping businesses to get more efficient.
Yeah. Excellent. And of course, with that kind of growth, that will keep you engaged and not sort of delving into what happens with the companies where you're not stimulated anymore. That's great. So lots and lots of adjacent opportunities for you. So I think you have something on the order of 30,000 customers now and about 700 employees.
We're getting close to 40,
Wow.
and yeah, and close to 800 employees. We've gone through 4 years of accelerating growth, which is atypical for companies of our size. Typically, the bigger you get, the harder it is to grow. However, for PandaDoc, year over year, our growth rate has been accelerating. And the reason for that is we've been blessed with word of mouth. A lot of our customers are small to mid-sized businesses that, let's say, do business with other small to mid-sized businesses. And then when you get a document and it looks good, the experience of closing that deal is easy.
Mm-hmm.
You might get curious, what kind of solution has this been executed upon? So yes, we benefit from that, like natural virality of the product, word of mouth. And therefore, last 4 years have been truly amazing for us, year over year growth.
Congratulations on your unicorn status.
Thank
I
you.
know there are sort of more in the world today than there have been in the past, and yet still a truly remarkable achievement for an organization. So let's back up to something you were talking about earlier, which was your personal history. So you were born in Belarus. You
That's
spent
right.
most of your life there, went to college, were on track to get a successful job, and then you decided to take a risk and move to the US when you were 19. I'd love to hear a little bit of that story, and then sort of how did those risks shape you into the leader that you are today? Are there lessons from that that have followed you and helped you?
Yeah, risks. Risks are only risks if they're followed by big rewards or big setbacks.
Mm,
And I think my move to America brought a lot of rewards as well as a lot of setbacks. There were good times, there were bad times. However, in retrospective, and think to today's moment, it's like we don't really know how we're going to think 10 years from now, right?
right.
But when I look back now, there have been so many more rewards compared to setbacks, and then there were definitely more good times versus
Yeah.
bad times.
Great. What were your dreams or your goals when you came to the US? I mean, most of us, if we're fortunate and have this in our sights, we go away to college when we're 19. You went away to an entirely different country. I don't know that you had much of a support system here when you arrived. Yeah.
I was looking to be free,
Mm.
and I think that this is one of those things that the United States of America market really well, and compared to Eastern Europe, compared to Belarus, like that was that's definitely the case. Definitely the case. Never lived anywhere else, so like for a long time to compare, but I was looking to be free, and I think I found it here, and I love it. In addition to that, when you start a business in America, it's like you play in a major league, Premier League, and the rules are different, and I like the rules here much better. The playing field is very different. It's more competitive, but
Yeah.
it's so much more fun.
Yeah.
So I love it here. Therefore, this like promise of American dream and promise of freedom and continuous change that can be ignited from within. Those are all very attractive things to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I was, I didn't talk about this before. I was part of the leadership team at a tech company, Compact Computer, which was then the fastest growing company in American history. When I started, when there was like zero revenue and only 100 employees. And by the time I left, we were at 15 billion and about 17,000 employees. So it was phenomenal. In some ways, envy the part of the ride that you're on now. It's pretty amazing to be able to wake up every day and have those experiences that I know that you're having. How are you building out your leadership team? Are you hiring, sort of from people you know? Are you hiring globally? How have you put your leadership team together?
Sure, happy to answer that. But first, I gotta say, I had one of those compact laptops
Yeah,
back in the day. Yes,
wonderful.
yeah.
Thank you.
It's a good computer, so thank you.
It was definitely a great product market fit at the time. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Leadership. We are borderless when it comes to hiring. We have hundreds of people in America. We have hundreds of people in Poland, Ukraine, Portugal, all around Europe. There are many people who work as kind of digital nomads at PandaDoc, moving from one place to another. And the unfortunate events in Belarus and in Ukraine, they forced us to adopt remote. They forced us to COVID. They forced us to transition to remote first culture. We were distributed from the very, very beginning because I moved here. My co-founder was in Belarus for a long time. We had to learn to communicate and work remotely. However, this full-scale transition happened over the course of last 2.5 years. Now, when we hire, we don't really care about where that person is, unless there are like legal implications of bringing someone on board. However, otherwise, or unless that person is in a sanctioned country. But otherwise, we don't really care, and it's been working for us just fine. Now, in terms of who we try to bring on board, be that in a leadership position or any other role, at some point, that was, I want to say, 5 or 6 years ago, things were pretty bad at PandaDoc. We had a really high attrition. There's so much conflict internally, and my co-founder and I remember we sat down together and had this like hard talk, like admitting that our culture doesn't work. I guess we don't really have a good culture within the company. We don't know what it is, but it's like things are not good. So what we did is we put together a list of values that we're aiming towards, and we've written a document describing describing who we aspire to be. Why do we do what we do beyond helping our customers to be more efficient, beyond streamlining document workflows? What's there on a kind of like deep emotional level, and how do we like the work to get done? And we've written it down, and we started holding each other accountable towards that culture. And then we've incorporated this document into our recruiting, into how we think about growth, internal growth and promotions. And that, I think, among other things, helped to shape our culture and connect around joint values and joint goals. So when we recruit, when we look for people, we try to use our values as the connecting tissue, as this magnet, and it attracts a certain kind of people, first and foremost, and then it also helps us to be very transparent about who we are and what kind of culture there is at PandaDoc. And then it helps to navigate us further. So that's when we think about how we think about recruiting, how we think about our people strategy, and leaders are no exception to that. There are certain qualities on top of the values that we outlined, but in general, we're looking for good people, and the way we understand good people, it's very subjective, but we've tried to write it down and then use it as a magnet.
Yeah. Wow. I'm just reminded of a CEO client that I had several years ago, a tech CEO. And when I first met him, I walked in his office and closed the door, and he spent the first 12 minutes telling me how horrible it was to work there. All right. And which is okay. I mean, those things happen. But what he didn't say was anything he had done or tried to do about it, which is when I was clear he wouldn't be a successful CEO because he didn't have the bias for action to do anything with it. And so, I applaud you and just, you know, for taking that step and figuring out you have to have a culture that is intentional. It doesn't have to always be the same culture, right? I have a preference for collaborative cultures, but it doesn't have to be that way. But you have to have a culture that people can self-select into and or can select out of if it's not there. And if you don't have that, it's very difficult to keep people aligned on the 10,000 decisions they have to make every day. So that sounds completely key to your success. So that brings me to what would be our final question, Mikita. So in my consulting business, my tagline is up and to the right, because that's the spot on the 2x2 matrix where we all want to be. Congrats, by the way, on having Gartner love you as well. Speaking of that upper right-hand box. Was there a seminal moment in your life or your career when you knew that you were going to be successful, that you were actually moving up into the right?
I'd say since my move to America, the red square started moving along the white ones much faster.
Uh-huh.
In the early days, really fast from the bottom left corner
Yeah.
to the top right corner, and it was just moving along the diagonal line, like back and forth, back and forth. But then I feel like year over year, it started to settle in up and to the right
Mm-hmm.
more. And it's only like it's normal for a human being. Like I'm only human to wake up one of those days and um, think or feel that things aren't great and it's a terrible day, terrible month, or whatever, terrible year, and tomorrow is not going to be better. But like that could be just one day, right? Out of 7 or out of 30, and it's important to look at things in sort of say in retrospective and have a statistically significant set of those
Well
dates
said.
or hours or whatever.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I feel like I'm in the upper right corner right now.
Yeah.
There are setbacks, there are issues, there are challenges, there are difficulties, but yeah, every human being has those. Every business has those. Every team has those, and the right amount of energy and optimism and knowledge, all those challenges and setbacks can be addressed. And that's what I try to have:
That's
optimism,
great.
energy, knowledge. Or I guess that's what I try to gain. And then once you gain enough of all of those components, and I'm sure there are more, I just don't know them. I try to gain all that, and then hopefully, I'll remain in that upper right corner. Or at least I'll feel I'm there, because that's equally important.
Absolutely important. So, I use the term directionally correct, statistically significant, absolutely, but it's never a straight line. It's not for anyone, and I think that's a big lesson from that. There's up and down, there's in and out, but you want to be directionally correct. So I have to close now because we're at the end of our time, but I do want to say again, thank you for making time for this. And because you've mentioned you have employees in a war zone, just wishing the best for your friends and family and employees during this time. And thank you again for being here and sharing your story.
It's a great pleasure, Karen. And if thousands of people are gonna, like, when thousands of people are gonna watch it,
Yeah.
I just want to remind that every one of us can do something good, little something. Visit novaukraine.org and consider a donation. That'd be my plug for today.
Yeah, awesome. So Nova, N-O-V-A, Nova Ukraine.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
NOVA.
Great. I'll put a link in the comments with this as well. Thank you so much.
My
And
pleasure.
yes, we
Thank
all
you,
have to do
Karen.
our part. All right, take good care. Thanks.
You too. Bye-bye.